Welcome to Keen on Retirement, a show dedicated to helping you thrive before and during your retirement years. If you are looking to grow and protect your wealth and want to make the second half of your life the best half, then listen in as wealth advisor Bill Keen sorts through the key issues that you need to know in a lively and candid way.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Keen on Retirement. I'm your co-host, Steve Sandusky. And with me, as always, are Bill Keen and Matt Wilson. Hey, guys, how you doing?
We are doing good today, Steve. We're having a nice event here at the firm. I know you've seen our location. I used to say new location, and in September it will be 3 years since we've been at this new 20,000 square foot. See, I said new again. I just literally caught myself saying new again. 20,000 square foot headquarters here. The 10th floor of the Lighton Tower in Overland Park, Kansas. Beautiful 360-degree views of our city, Overland Park here. And one of the features of our space is a very nice training room with state-of-the-art technology. It seats up to about 40, 45 classroom style, and then it kind of bleeds over into our lounge area, which could seat another 30 folks with TVs that are all connected and great, like I said, great audio-visual equipment. And today we're hosting one of our trusted partners, a tax and legal firm here in Kansas City, and they're doing a training. They brought in an expert from Colorado to do their annual training. It's a full-day training. We've got about, I believe, 20 to 25 tax attorneys and CPAs right here on site, learning about, talking about, collaborating on the new tax legislation that we talked about just one episode ago here. And I actually got to introduce them today, welcome them to our facility. We let them use the facility just because it's one of the things we built it for, was our own internal meetings, client meetings, and then trusted partners meetings as well. And I was a little nervous, Steve and Matt, because the trainer was asking me questions. I was just introducing and welcoming them and telling them where the coffee was, and so forth.
He was just testing your knowledge.
Well, I think he was, because at one of the breaks, the head of the firm, Kevin, there said, "Hey, I think he was trying to figure out if you guys were, how advanced you were." And he said, "You did very well." And I said, "Well, we just did a podcast on it last couple weeks ago." So, we do study this as well. We have credentialed professionals here at our firm as well. And we work very well with, and often with other tax professionals, CPAs, tax attorneys, to coordinate and collaborate on our mutual clients. But he said, "Yeah, I think you did great," as he was trying to understand the sophistication of Keen Wealth with that opportunity. And he said, frankly, most financial firms don't do that type of work. They don't do that advanced work. Some do, but most do not. And we lead. I mean, our core of our firm is financial planning. It's the planning that goes into determining what's most important to folks and how to really optimize our assets based on this ever-moving target of regulation and tax law and life. And the investments are very important, but they are just an engine to that plan, and the plan dictates how the engine needs to perform and over time. So I think I did well, Matt, for us there with the instructor there, and he's a tax lawyer. He's not, he's a CPA and a tax lawyer, and of course he's an expert. There's a lot of really smart people over there in that conference room right now that it's good to know, including all the rest of our team as well. So, because we had a lot of our planners sit in on the training as well, of course. I mean, how could we not, with bringing this type of brain power, brain trust into our firm? So they were able to sit on the periphery there and participate as well. So good day here.
Excellent. And it's going to be a good day here on the podcast as well. So we're going to talk about an issue that unfortunately we have to talk about, which is scams. And we've had some new data, some new research that has come out from the FTC that gave us some of the data for 2024 on the amount of money that has been lost to scams. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about ways to prevent you from getting scammed and see if we can help you all out there. So Matt, what do we got here?
Yeah, this really caught my attention. This report came out earlier this year, and so the FTC does this on an annual basis, and the data for 2024. So they track scams, like, because you can report, and we'll talk about how you can report when you're being solicited for a scam. It's not just reporting a scam has happened and you've now been victim of it. It's being, hey, I'm getting this. I'm going to report this as a scam. But there was $12.5 billion lost to scams in 2024, which was up 25% from 2023. And I mean, that's a large amount of money, just when you're talking billions of dollars. But two, a 25% increase is quite a significant increase. And that kind of is like, okay, I guess, I mean, we feel like we've talked about this a lot, and continue to evolve as things change. But I gotta think, if I were to kind of say, well, I wonder what really changed, and I'm sure you all probably think of the same thing, but it's probably the increase in usage of AI can make it much more believable and easier for the fraudsters to take advantage of people. I mean, I think gone are the days where you'd get all these crazy misspelled words in these emails and everyone just like, okay, that's a scam.
Where they're obvious, right?
Yeah. Because who knows? I don't know any scammers, so I don't know how intelligent they are, how tech savvy they are. I mean, they have to have some tech savvy if they're figuring out how to do that even back in the day. But two, I got to think they've latched onto AI and helping them figure that out. Now, maybe that's one of the things that AI's got to figure out how to prevent. How do we minimize this tool from getting in the wrong hands and being used against people in a negative fashion, which, that's a whole nother podcast topic for a whole nother day.
And then how we're going to provide the power, the energy grid, so that the AI can fight itself, the bad guys and the good guys. Again, yet another podcast, Steve.
Yeah. Well,
and if you're just off the grid, you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. So
yeah,
my
stepmother Irene, who was on the show, got some of the biggest downloads in history of our program. It does not have an email address or a computer, and she stayed clear of all of this. And she's still driving up here from Jacksonville AI. Now at 86. She's not worried about AI at this point.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, yeah, we probably should do an episode just specifically on AI and the implications and what we need to be doing to be thinking about that in the financial realm.
Sure.
And I just had an interesting conversation this morning with a gentleman who has written a book about AI, and we had really interesting conversations about what it can do and the impact. And we didn't specifically talk about scams, but definitely talking about how it has the power to completely impersonate you. I mean, it can make a video of you. Let's say you've got a video out on YouTube. Mm-hmm. It can basically absorb the video, create a new video with you, with your voice. It'll sound exactly like you. It'll talk like you talk, and really hard to tell the difference. So yeah, there's a lot of discernment that's going to have to take place out there as we move forward to make sure you don't get caught up in some of this stuff.
Yeah,
well, I guess if you're a bad actor and you get caught on video doing something, you can just say, no, that was AI. Is that what the folks are?
Well, that'll be a defense, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that wasn't me. Is that what?
Right? Yeah, I didn't do it. That was my twin.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
My evil twin.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Matt, what are some of these? Yeah, what are some of these scams here?
One of the so they kind of report, okay, what are the most common scams? Where was the most money lost? Because they want to inform the consumers about, hey, you guys, everyone should be aware of this. I've noticed that even our custodian Charles Schwab and other even financial institutions that I have relationships with, they've been sending out more emails. If I were to kind of think back, it's probably been over the last 6 or 12 months just about scams and fraud. And I think that's in response to them too, getting reports from their consumers or their customers, clients that, hey, what is this? Someone's pretending to be you. So one of the most common scams has what they define as imposter scams.
Mhm.
So they are individuals pretending to be from government agencies, law enforcement, or other trusted entities.
Yes.
So, it's, hey, this is the IRS. You owe us money. Click this link. A lot of times that can be an email or text. I've noticed I've gotten some texts pretending to be the post office saying I have a package that if I don't pay to release it from something, it won't be delivered. There's been a toll road one, I think, that's been very common, saying that you have unpaid tolls, that if you don't pay them, a warrant or citation will be issued. Again, I mean, there's probably a lot of different examples around that, but those ones, I think, well, they work. They get people's attention. Well, do I have something? What?
Of course.
I don't want to be in trouble with any government agency or law enforcement. That would not be fun. And okay, what do I have to do? Well, pay us however much. I mean, I'm sure they start small and they probably snowball depending on who they've got on the end, on the end line there that they're trying to convince. But that can be very scary. But I think kind of one of that takeaways there is just, you're probably never going to get a text from any government agency or law enforcement related to that.
Right. You'll
Yeah, I don't
probably
know.
get, what you would get would be a certified letter in the mail, likely certified. Now, that still doesn't mean that it's real, but that would be more likely. We had an instance come up recently that was brought to my attention where this was about jury duty. And I know if you're ever informed you need to be on a jury, that you kind of think, oh,
Yeah.
goodness, no one wants to probably go give a week of their life to a jury duty, but it's part of our system here in the United States. And we had someone that had been told that they had been selected for jury duty, but they could pay $500 to get out of going to jury duty. And it looked extremely
A
real.
lot of
And
people
it had,
probably take him up on that.
yeah, and it had the the courthouse, the county courthouse, and it had real names listed. So if you looked at it, it looked like it was from, if you pulled up the
Yeah.
names, it looked like that would have been maybe possibly real. So, remember, these scammers are doing this in mass. They're sending these out to thousands and thousands of people, not tens of thousands of people. So the law of large numbers, people are going to bite. And this is why I want to, be clear. If you receive a text, have you two received a text that just says, "Hey, how are you doing? Long time, haven't spoke," or "Hey, I changed my number. I'd love to
Yep.
chat," or anything like that, trying to get you to respond?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
If you respond, you now get kicked into a system on the dark web that says this is a real number. It simply says, it now splits this out. This number is a real number. There's a person on the other end of this cell phone number. And now you're going to get solicited even more because those things are getting resold on the dark web, if you will. So that's something to be aware of. Never, ever respond to a text that you don't know who it is, because you just solidified that you're there.
And I know on my phone, you can say report as spam, like right below it.
Mm-hmm.
And I that's what I do. I just report it and it deletes it off my phone and probably blocks it,
Blocks
whatever. But
Yes.
I think it reports it to, at least to the carrier, and maybe I'm sure they're reporting it then further up.
That's right. That's
And
right.
Also, I'll get phone calls, as I'm sure you guys do, from numbers that I don't recognize.
Yeah.
And I'd never answer those. And I'd say 95% of the time, there's no voice message attached to it.
Yeah.
So don't even answer the phone. I mean, don't answer the text messages if you don't recognize it, and just don't answer the phone if you don't recognize the number. Because if it's important, they'll leave a voicemail or they'll do something different to connect with you. But I don't waste my time answering the phone if I don't recognize the number, because the vast majority of those are just going to be robocallers or they're going to be scam stuff.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, like, because what we wanted to provide some solutions too, because it's like, it's one thing to talk about it, just to be aware of it, but then two, how do you prevent yourself from getting in those situations, at least as much as possible. You may not be able to be on the forefront of every scam that exists, but at least you can get rid of some of this stuff. And two, the other angle that I think of this from is, we have a lot of clients that listen to our show, and of course, people are across the country that listen in, but they could be, caring for, or maybe their power of attorney for their parents, and or they're just mindful that their parents are getting older. And I think of these things to help people. Hey, you should potentially think about this for them, because they may not be thinking this way. They could be getting that text that just says, I changed my number, and they start replying to it.
For sure.
Not thinking that that's a scam. So what you can do, and it doesn't matter the device, at least I know Android and iPhone, and we're going to link to some of these how-tos in the show notes, because they're going to be different for the types of phones that you have. But you can stop spam text, and you can also stop the spam phone calls from even coming into your phone, or at least they block them, and you might get a voicemail. I think it just doesn't ring on some of those spam calls. So like Steve, in your example, where they don't leave a voicemail, well, it doesn't ring on your phone. It doesn't ever show up.
Yet another reason to be subscribed to our show, so that you get the show notes.
That's right. I mean, because you can block, you can block unknown numbers. You can restrict. I have an Apple phone. I know you can restrict it to just your contacts, to just people that you've interacted with. So, you can get very, very restrictive with some of that. And I've heard of clients saying they've done that with their parents, where they were afraid that they could have been taken advantage of because they were saying some things like, well, I got this. And they said, okay, we're just putting your phone on contacts only. So if they're not in your phone, too bad. They're not going to get through to you via your phone, so that they could limit even the ability for someone to get there. As I mentioned too, you can put, at least on Apple, you can report it as spam if you get something like that, just right below those text messages. But also you can forward them, if you're savvy enough to do this, to 7726, which is the word spam in numerical format, and that would report it to the mobile carrier too, which I think is a good thing if you can remember to do that. Of course, as always, don't click on any links that you receive on any of these, spam type of messages, because that's how they're hacking into your data, not just getting your information from you giving it to them, but also potentially getting into your system there, whether it's mobile or on a laptop or desktop computer. Same thing with doing the same thing. You can do the same thing with phone calls too. And I for some reason, I don't know why, I got to a point where I'm like, I keep getting all these spam phone calls, and it would say like spam likely, but it would still say, it'd still ring. I don't know. I got tired of it. It was interrupting. I was doing something. I'm like, it'd ring on my AirPods or something. It finally annoyed me enough where I looked it up. I'm like, I turned the setting on. Haven't gotten one since.
I love it.
So it's very good. I mean, if it already knows it's spam likely, it already probably knows then how to block that. And I haven't had any people tell me, well, I called you and voicemail, text. I'm like, well, so I figured if someone really needed to get a hold of me, they'd figure out how to do that.
Steve, I've been trying to call Matt recently and reach him, and it's been going right to voicemail. I think maybe he's blocked me as well.
He took you out of his contact list.
Well, it used to say if your I'm terrible at deleting voicemails, and it used to say if it was full, but at least tell me so I could go in and delete them. And I don't know, maybe it doesn't do that anymore. So I haven't been getting a lot of voicemails either. Maybe that's why.
Well, they haven't called. I suppose they'd reach you somehow. So
yeah. The clients know how to get a hold of me at the office, so we got that taken care of.
That's right.
you got the old do not call registry, so that's one thing. But again, I don't think the scammers care about that, so that may not help you a lot. It'll help you in some things if they're not necessarily a scammer, but they're just some sort of product service provider that's pestering you. Sign up for stuff like that to at least get that get that off there. And there's apps out there. I don't know anything about how well they work. Some of them are paid apps. Some of them are through your carriers. They probably have a cost associated with them because, people want to make some money if they can. But I would at least start at the basics. Again, we'll link to it in the show notes on some of these how-tos on setting up, how to turn those things off. That's really, I think, really important to be aware of.
I think it could fall under the government impersonation. I had another case that one of our fine financial planners, CFP, Will, brought to me here in the last few weeks. And he had come across a situation where someone that he knew had been out of town in Mexico on vacation. So someone was vacationing out of town, and scammers, unbeknownst to the this person's parents, reached out and called his mother and said that he had been detained. Now, I know we've heard this. We've heard these things where they tell you your child's detained and so forth. But he had been detained in Mexico, in a Mexican jail, for, it was interesting, missing jury duty. Now, this was another jury duty tied situation, but that he was in Mexico, detained in a Mexican jail, that she needed to pay $5,000 because he didn't show up for jury duty here in Johnson County, Kansas.
Oh, so they contacted the Mexican police to arrest him.
Yes. And so they were contacted. The parents were contacted. They were on the way to start. They were in the process of starting to make a payment via credit card. They had looked up the names these people were identified by, and they were legit people. They were working. They were police officers at the local law enforcement. They were real people, and they looked it up. They about made the payment via credit card, and they went ahead and called down to the police station and found out that it was a scam. And the officers told them when they called that they've had that scam in the last month, probably, I think he said 30 or 40 times, if not more.
I bet.
That people, but somehow they knew. Again, this isn't just to be alarmist here, but somehow the scammers knew that this person had been in Mexico enough and to get the parents' phone number and make this telephone call. And this person, I asked a little bit of questions, and he found out this person was not posting on Facebook about their trip to Mexico or anything of that nature. So whether they're, tracking passports somehow or airline tickets or whatever it was. Yep, something to definitely be aware of. And we do a lot of training on this. Like, we've been training our clients and talking about it on this show for many years. But our clients, even our clients in their 40s and 50s, they might be a little, if you're in the workforce, you're probably hopefully you're getting training, cybersecurity training. If you work anywhere, you're likely getting cybersecurity training. But imagine that generation. You mentioned, you kind of alluded to it earlier, Matt, where you've been out of the workforce for 15 or 20 years. You're in your 70s and your 80s, highly susceptible. They don't have the training. Well, it's one reason we're doing this, but they don't have the training, what to be aware of. So again, that's why we think it's just so important to chat about these things, because these things can be really scary and feel real, very real.
Yeah. And I mean, it can add up to a lot of money. We had a client, and they were telling us about their parents were getting scammed. Now, this is slightly different, and it wasn't a just mass consumer scam, but it was through a person they met at church who was on hard times, and was always on hard times, and and the way they uncovered it is because they were starting to show signs of dementia, so they became POA and they executed those POAs. So now they were in charge
Power
of
of
their
attorney.
finances. Yeah, and they were just taking a look at their and they started questioning, like, well, what's this money for? They couldn't quite determine where it was at, and they were just telling them. The parents were telling them, and they were informing them that this person, I think, is scamming you, like the way they were describing it. And they said they're still almost convinced, I mean, that it's a scam, but there's still part of them that believes that it's been real. So anyway, I mean, you can get very, very localized scammers too that you need to be aware of, where these things happen. Not just, hey, you're getting weird texts or phone calls. You're getting people that are just taking advantage of someone, and again, it can add up to a lot of money. I think this one added up to over 6 figures over the course of 5 or 10 years. I mean, it was a long time.
Do you remember we did a show, I don't know, about 6 months ago? Barb, one of our loyal listeners, was going through a situation and said, hey, y'all should talk about just this inevitable fact. And we're all headed there, where our parents, and eventually it'll be us, right? I mean, are starting to need help in their later years. And how do we do it? How do we do it with dignity? How do we help them navigate their lives with the the ability to feel like that they're still in control, but that they're not susceptible? We actually did a whole episode on that. Yet another thing we can link to. But being aware as that caretaker, if we're fortunate enough at that point in our lives to have someone that could help us, one of our kids or a trusted contact is helping us, be a power of attorney for us. And then if we have the privilege to be able to do that for one of our parents, as we sit here today and think about that, I know I sure had over the years, and my stepmother's still living, as we've shared, but and she's very sharp, but I still help her. But as we are looking at, it's being aware of your loved ones' finances, if they've given you the ability to. I mean, it's one thing, and that was part of our podcast. We talked about how do you do this without being overstepping, and without, it's a dance. It's a dance. Yeah, you have to be tactical about it, and have to hopefully they've asked for your help. But once you have that ability to look, you got to pay attention to credit cards and bank statements, and don't just assume everything's okay because they're not reporting something's out of line. They might not realize something's out of line.
Yeah. And some things that you can help them do, where at least, again, to prevent it, like we mentioned with the spam, shutting down the spam texts and phone calls, but also freezing your credit. That's another, we've talked about that in the past, but that's even become it's become easier and easier to do. When it first came out, it was kind of a hassle to freeze and unfreeze, because if your credit's frozen, especially at all 3 credit bureaus, so that's one of the things. There's 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So you'd have to do it at all 3 to be completely frozen. But now they have apps. You can do it online. You can freeze and unfreeze it instantaneously via these apps. So if you are applying for an auto loan and it was frozen and now you want to unfreeze it, you can do it on the spot, and it'll go through. Whereas before, years ago, it would take a few days, and you had to be aware of that stuff. So it's something that has become easier and easier to do, and encouraging, especially if I know my parents aren't going to be applying for any loans anytime soon, even helping them do it without being the power of attorney for them. Probably talk through that with them. You can set it up for your children too, if you're worried about them, and they're maybe not at the age of applying for credit or receiving credit, but you want to prevent it from someone, fraudster, scammer, taking their information and using it to set that up. We'll link in the show notes on how to do that and the process for it, so people are familiar with it, since it is evolving. It is going with the times. Now, that doesn't replace downloading your credit, your actual credit reports, which you also get free reports from those places, because you do want to check that from time to time. To make sure that at least there isn't anything out there that you're unaware of, or something that's new that showed up. There are free apps like Credit Karma that will notify you a new credit card has been opened in your name.
Sure.
And that gives
Immediately.
you a heads up. And those are free apps that you can download off the app stores and check those things out. So, a different type of a way to prevent from at least your information getting out there and creating a financial hassle for you to deal with.
That's right. Another thing that I wanted to share with you all today is we talk about the way that these scammers can get into your periphery. They get into your consciousness, and they engender a response of some sort, be it phone call, text, click on a link, whatever it might be. But our minds are trained. If you've got the training, you know that likely if somebody's calling you, asking you for information, that you're not supposed to give it. You're supposed to hang up and call the institution directly and verify that this was real. That's the training now we've all received. But here's a nuance to that a new scam has come out with. We received a call at our house actually to Carissa, and it was interesting because she's a pretty sharp woman. She's very very business savvy. She received a call and somebody had some issues, they said, from years ago with some legal thing. It was confusing. It sounded real, but they said, look, don't trust me. I understand. Now listen, they led with this. I understand there's a lot of scams out here, so please don't trust me here telling you this. Let me give you the number to the courthouse or to the appropriate authority. You call them.
Wow.
You call them directly. I was just hired to tell you this information, and I'm not even going to ask you to settle anything. I just was informed, hired to inform you of this. But here, let me give you a number. If you care to look into it, you can call them. You deal with it with them. And if not, they will send paperwork to your house, and they might even send somebody by to serve you. He did say that at the end. But if you want to call and work it out, go ahead. So it was this thing where they gave her a number, and she wouldn't mind me telling you because I told her I was going to use it on the show. And hey, people get embarrassed by falling for this stuff too. This is something that Jeff Lanza has trained us on, the former FBI special agent that we've hired to do training. He's been on our show twice, 2 or 3 times, and he's spoken for us in person. People get embarrassed by this because some smart people get taken, and it's shameful. So that's another reason that they don't tell others what's going on as well. So we got to get around that. But she wasn't ashamed of this. It was just something she wanted me to share. She gave me permission to share. She called the number. At this point, not thinking, she's like, what is this? This sounded very real. She called the number and they said, oh, what's your name? Told her name. Said, oh, okay. What's your case number? And the fellow had given her a case number. So she gave them the case number. Now in her mind, think about her subconscious mind is now connecting these dots that she's calling them, giving them information, and they're verifying to her on this call that, yes, they have the information and that is indeed accurate. And then he started to try to take her down a road of being able to pay the money to get out of the fines and get out of the prior thing.
Wow.
And she realized it pretty quickly. But again, just another nuance to getting you. It's a sneaky way to get you making a phone call so that some of the sharpest people you think that it's okay because you're the one that had reached out. Just wanted to bring that to your all's attention today as well. And I know there's a lot of ways that these things can appear, and we have a whole litany of them here, don't we, Matt? We've kind of thrown out some examples and some ways, and talked about the demographics that are most targeted. But there's job scams and employment agencies. There's the cryptocurrency. I mean, I don't know if you want to roll through those with our listeners and viewers.
Yeah, no, I mean, you think of the big ones, it's like investment scams. Well, is it too good to be true? I mean, these are non-regulated investments, of course, that you can't purchase on a publicly traded stock exchange. Well, that should throw some red flags right there. But with the internet, there's a lot of things like that people can fall victim to. And then you've got people impersonating banks via emails, texts, things like that. Makes it look very legitimate that your bank is letting you know about something, whether it's bounce checks or anything else that's going to create a problem if you don't take care of it. So, it can come in any form or fashion. Social media, there's messages you can get through those social media apps that are promoting certain things, or building a relationship with somebody where they're pretending to be someone else, and just using that against you to get money out of you, which, you know, that can happen. It probably happens a lot, and it's probably not reported a lot, where people are falling for this kind of false relationship online, and especially with social media. And as we mentioned, like AI, things can look very real that definitely aren't when it's not in person.
Steve, you shared something before we went live here on the program today. The name of that type of I think they're calling it something now. Do you recall what you said?
Pig butchering.
Okay.
Pig butchering.
And did you figure out exactly where they came up with that?
Yeah, I don't know who came up with that.
Okay.
No, I mean, do you happen to know what the history is of this thing called pig butchering?
Well, when you first said it, it rung a bell, and so I did just a little bit of research, and it says, so basically the scammer starts initiating contact through the social media, or through means like wrong numbers, or like the wrong number text, where it's like, oh my gosh, it's the wrong number, but while we're here, let's have a chat. Mm-hmm. Regardless of how it is, a lot of times it is these relationship apps, but they just try to build a relationship with the victim over time, you know, feigning romantic interests or shared hobbies or things of that nature, political commonalities, things like that. And then after they gain some trust, they introduce an investment opportunity, and it's, oh goodness, you would never guess, often related to cryptocurrency, something that can't be tracked. And there's elaborate schemes of being able to show statements, and even in some cases, they'll get a very small investment from somebody under $100 and then show a return, and actually maybe even send the money back so that the return went full circle. This is that thing where now we're getting people's guards down, just like the person that had Carissa call a number. Now you're engaging in a transaction that you perceived was successful, and you actually got money back for it, even though it was very small amount. These scammers are going to always avoid meeting in person or on video calls. Yep. Certainly, false profiles that they've created out there. But coming back to the pig butchering scam, it's kind of a brutal name, I guess, for this. But it says the name refers to the, quote, fattening of the victim through trust building before the, quote, slaughter of their finances. Man, that's not
pretty visceral,
very fun to think about, or super exciting, which is why we need to, stand strong ourselves and with our loved ones and anyone else that we can, share this information with, because you have to. There's no choice. Mm-hmm. You have no choice. I mean, so if anybody ever has a question about anything, the default is always no response. Always no click, no response, hang up the phone. It's always that. Always default to doing no engagement. And if the person if it's that important, and if it really is a government agent or someone like this that needs to get a hold of you, they will get a hold of you. But the default should always be no engagement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have a quick story here along those lines. I was having a conversation with a gentleman who had written a book, and one of the stories that he published in his book was about a scam. And the gist of the story was, this was back before the internet. Someone had taken out some little classified ads, and they basically were posing as a woman who was lonely and wanted to have some gentlemanly conversation. So people would then write letters back and forth, and the scammer would impersonate the woman, would write back to these men, and over time they ended up asking for money. Mm-hmm. And the men would send the money, and eventually the scammer got caught. But what was really fascinating about this particular situation is that when the scammer went to trial, some of the victims were at the trial, and they spoke on behalf of the scammer. Mm-hmm. And yes, they said, even though we know this turned out to be a scam, we don't really want to see this person prosecuted because it met a need that I had at that time. and it helped me feel better, blah, blah, blah. And
Interesting.
and the reason why I mentioned this story is if we think about artificial intelligence today, it's getting to the point where you don't need a human on the other end to be responding in a scam like this. You can just be interacting with an AI that is going to basically in real time, as you may be texting back and forth, it's going to figure out, okay, what do I need to say in response to what this text that just came in to try and get deeper and deeper into the emotional psyche of this person that's going to make them want to send me money. And so the stuff, I mean, if you go down the rabbit hole here, can get really scary. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this particular episode is just to alert people to be aware and be, I don't want to say paranoid. We don't want to go through life being paranoid.
I know, but
just
yeah.
I mean, just be open to the idea that, hey, is this real? You know, and just take a second glance at these kinds of things.
I think, I mean, I'm going to go back to my default. My default behavior is no response, no engagement. My default behavior is going to have to be, no, it's not real. So this is like not real until proven real. You know, like,
Yeah.
So yeah. And again, you know, if you listen to this stuff and pay attention to it, you know, we might lose all of our listeners and viewers because they would completely disconnect from the electronics.
Yeah. If they're like Irene, they won't fall victim to this, but they also.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
you know, Steve, you spoke of that, and I think it's been a nice episode to be able to just share some of our experiences or folks that we've come the knowledge that we've gotten from being in this industry, and from being talking to other colleagues around the country and the trains that we do receive. I was made privy of another situation here recently where you mentioned that the victims came and actually testified for the scammer for these other reasons. You mentioned that. And I became aware of a situation here where someone's parent who's in his late 70s, early 80s, ended up losing over the course of about 3 years. Kind of speaks to the one Matt mentioned as well, where you met somebody actually in person, which is a whole nother world. But they came into contact with this outfit. They said they were an investment firm out of Florida. And they got this gentleman to send them $5,000. They were making the statements. They showed him that he was making money. And then over the course of the next 2 years, they actually got him to send all of his money to him. There was about $200,000. Luckily, his son has had a very, very nice business and a large net worth. He's going to take care of his father on this. But what got his attention finally was that his dad sold his truck and didn't have anything to drive anymore. And he said, "Dad, what? You just sold your truck?" And he told him that, yes, I did, because I had this opportunity and this investment in Florida. And they said, if I could send him 45,000, that I could really like double, quadruple, and so forth his assets. And this is when the son finally became aware that he had just sent a couple $100,000 liquid and then another almost 50 grand after they convinced him to sell his truck. He had no way, no transportation. And what was interesting about it was the gentleman, the son, was saying, "Dad, you're never getting that money back. It's a scam." Like, and he said, "Put me on with them. Show me what they've sent you." He saw the stuff. No one would answer the phone to him, but he just was convinced. He said his dad is still convinced that they're gonna call him back and that he's gonna be able to get those resources back with the return they promised. Like, he's still today convinced that he's gonna get that money back.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, nobody likes to admit that they were wrong.
Yeah, we talk about that. This is a extreme version of what we call the sunk cost bias. But you know, you'd make an investment or spend some time doing something, and when you realize that it probably wasn't correct, you want to stick with it. And that's why somebody that buys a stock that, you know, not a fraudulent stock, but a stock that just didn't work, and it's time to move on, they want to just hold it forever because they have that sunk cost mentality. Maybe it's something like that, a variation of that, where you've fallen prey for something and there's just every ounce of you wants it to be what you thought it was, I guess. So,
yeah. Well, bottom line here is there are bad actors out there, and hopefully it's a very small percentage of the population, but nonetheless, it can cause great damage. And so hopefully this episode has been a bit of an eye-opener, and we shared some ideas here on how to be on the lookout for potential scams, how to protect yourself in advance of that. And if you have any questions, comments about this, of course, just reach out to us, and we'll do whatever we can as well to help you move forward. So Bill or Matt, I don't know if either of you have any final concluding comments here today.
I think we've taken this topic and we've looked at it from all angles today. The recurring theme is awareness, education, staying on point, paying attention to what's going on. And again, I hesitate to continue repeating myself, but having the default to be no engagement, assume it's bad until proven otherwise. I think that's just a great way to operate. And then with our kids who don't have the training, and with our maybe elderly parents and relatives, be on the lookout and be aware for them as best we can without overstepping, and find that balance and just fight the good fight, I would say, going forward here. And I know here at Keen Wealth, we have policies and protocols in place to check and double check with our clients anytime money is moving. We get a lot of training here. We shared that on a couple episodes ago about the resources we put into cyber security, cyber training of not only our team members, but our clients, up to and including this very episode today that we decided to devote 40 minutes or so to. So stay aware and just stay on your toes out there, and we can have a positive outcome for sure.
Excellent. All right. Well, appreciate you two guys as always, Bill and Matt. And if any of you listening have any comments or questions, please feel free to reach out to us at keenwealthadvisors.com. And we will look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Keen on Retirement.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Steve.
The Steve Sandusky Advisor Network and Belay Advisor are not affiliated with Keen Wealth Advisors. Opinions expressed by Steve are his own and not necessarily the opinions of Keen Wealth Advisors. Keen Wealth Advisors is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Keen Wealth Advisors and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. The contents of this podcast are intended for the residents of the United States of America. No advice may be rendered by Keen Wealth Advisors unless a client service agreement is in place. This program is intended for informational purposes only and should not be construed as advice on or a recommendation of any particular investment, strategy, or as tax or legal advice for your specific situation. Keen Wealth Advisors is not a tax or legal advisor. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your licensed professional prior to investing. Information in this program was compiled from sources believed to be reliable. Due to the constant state of data changing, we do not guarantee the timeliness or the accuracy of the information provided. Our views or opinions at the time you are listening to the podcast may be different than they were when the podcast was recorded. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. Any prices that are referenced or market forecasts are as of the date stated and are not necessarily our opinions moving forward. As always, please remember, investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. This podcast is not allowed to be copied, distributed, published, or reproduced without permission from Keen Wealth Advisors.